It's time now for an in-depth look at the global markets on this Friday, and for that I'm joined on the line by Dr. Kim Sei-wan, professor of economics at Ewha Womans University. Dr. Kim, thank you for joining us today.
Good afternoon.
This week, data showed the first slowdown in American manufacturing in 3 years, and some see that as a possible sign of a broader slowdown. If that were to happen, Korea, with its heavy dependence on other countries, would be affected in a pretty big way, would it not?
Right. Actually, U.S. manufacturing is weakened due to U.S.-China trade war generated dismantle of global value chain. Actually, as we know, Korea is one of the largest victims of U.S.-China trade conflict because Korea's for independence is one of the largest between major economies. So given that situation, Korea's total export is declining over 10 straight months, and particularly its export to China decreases over 20%. So as you said, Korea will be hugely affected by current situation.
Well, now, America is sort of setting the pace on interest rate cuts for countries around the world. We know the Bank of Korea is watching, so the Federal Reserve at least is staying optimistic about the U.S. What do you think about that?
I believe that overall status of U.S. economy is pretty healthy. Even though U.S. manufacturing is declining, it covers only 19% of total U.S. GDP. The remaining like 80% of the U.S. GDP is covered by service industry like banks, finance, legal service, and medical service. And that part is still robust. So that was represented by service industrial purchase managers index increased up to 56 from 53. So again, U.S. overall economy is still very robust.
Now, on Friday, the U.S. Fed Chairman, Jerome Powell, will be giving a speech. What do you think he might have to say?
Actually, in the Jackson Hole Symposium of U.S. Fed in the last month, August, the Chairman Powell was supposed to give the direction of U.S. monetary policy, but he did not clarify the direction of future U.S. monetary policy in the symposium. And then U.S. Federal Reserve is seriously considering the negative impact of U.S.-China trade war on U.S. economy and global economy together. So it is highly expected that U.S. Fed cuts its base interest rate by 0.25% in September's FOMC meeting. So Mr. Powell will give some indicator and information about that interest cut in the near future.
Now, back here in Korea, we saw consumer inflation for the first time. Remarkable. It fell to 0, or maybe lower than that in reality. What's causing that, and what can be done about it?
August inflation in Korea against last year's price level was negative 0.4%. So technically speaking, it was the first negative inflation or deflation in history. The largest concern related to that is deflation could be a signal to long-term recession like that of the Japan's long-lasting recession starting from early 1990s. So very general and unanimous, I think, policy package for avoiding long-lasting recession is expansionary policy and expansionary monetary policy. Yes.
Well, speaking of expansionary policy, the government plans to spend an extra $2 billion this year to try and revive the economy. But this has some worried, on the other hand, about the state's fiscal soundness. What kind of constraints might the government face, and what generally should we be watching there?
Well, I think expansionary fiscal policy is an appropriate measure to stimulate the economy, first of all. But it should be supported by expansionary monetary policy of more money supply and lower interest rates. And it should be pointed out that we can't continue expansionary policy, fiscal policy and monetary policy forever because of worsening government debt. So while expansionary fiscal policy is effective, we have to enforce the structural reforms, particularly in labor markets and industries.
Got it, Dr. Kim. That's where we'll have to leave it on this Friday. Thanks so much for sharing your insights.
Thank you for having me today.